Ladies and gentlemen, I think both Dr. Michael Shermer and Dsouza deserve a huger round of applause. Huger. It's not a word, but it describes the moment. Huger. Okay, while they collect themselves mentally before we begin the cross-examination, I'm going to let them take a 2 or 3 minute breather here. I'm going to remind you about the symposium tomorrow at the New Covenant Church. This is free for students. It's $20 for everybody else. Dinesh will be there giving a keynote address. If you're interested, nobody's breaking your arm, but it might be interesting for some of you. There are going to be 5 sessions that will also include a conversation, a panel between atheists and theists. But there's also going to be a panel on a session covering pluralism from Craig Hazen from Biola University, hot moral issues, or morale issues if you prefer. I'm sure it's moral. From Bishop Schofield, the Anglican Diocese. Youth and Cultural Faith by Chap Clark, who's from the Fuller Theological Seminary. Tactics in Defending Faith by Alan Schleman, Stand to Reason. And all of the information you'll be able to find here when we're done with tonight's get-together, okay? Now, prior to taking this to you in the audience, we're going to do a cross-examination up here, and we've shortened the time a little bit to give more time to you in the audience to participate when this is done. However, we're going to loosen that up just a hair in case I need to jump in and have the gentleman clarify the point that they're trying to make so that we all understand what the cross-examination is about. So, they're going to ask each other questions, and I am, who wants to go first?
So, Dinesh, where do you get your morals from? If from God, how do you get them? Direct communication? Does he tell you what they are? From the Bible? Do you just read the Bible and interpret them? And if so, then how do you pick and choose the ones that we obviously would never endorse, stoning to death disobedient children, for example, and most of Leviticus and Deuteronomy you and I would reject? Where do you get your morals?
The primary source of morals is not a particular religious code. It is what I would say is the voice of morality imprinted within us. So, for example, if there was a little dog there and you began to stomp on it, I would submit that just about all of us would feel a moral revulsion. That's not because we know the story of Jonah and the belly of the whale. It's because we have a powerful moral sense that's part of human nature.
What if it was a cat? No, just kidding.
Then we would all be equally entertained by it.
Not all of us.
What, in your opinion, was God doing for the first 13.6 billion years of the 13.7 billion years of the universe before we came on the scene?
If I knew, I would be him.
Okay.
Look,
right. Fair enough.
The way that we believers think of God somewhat in the ratio that, let's say, an ant might think of a human being. Now, obviously, from the capacity of an ant, it's a little difficult to discover the full nature, the precise habits, the real motives. In a sense, you can think of God as not simply a really smart guy within space and time, but, if you will, an omniscient being outside of space and time. And modern science has opened space for that possibility. The very idea that space and time came into being with the universe suggests that space and time, contrary to every intuition, are not eternal.
Okay, if God is outside of space and time, presumably for us to know anything about him, or her, presumably he reaches into our world in some corporeal way that we could measure, know, feel, sense, test, something like that.
Absolutely, and in fact, you're missing the predominant way in which God does that, which is the human experience of God that is had by the vast majority of people in the planet. You are forced to explain away a very common data, which is to say human experience, and dismiss it as an illusion. At least that as a believer, I can understand, if you will, atheist experience. But
okay.
It seems that as an atheist, you are discounting all of religious experience presumptively branding it illusory instead of asking to what reality does this manifest fact of experience point?
Good point, but I never deny anybody's experiences. The question is, are the experiences of something out there or in here? We know that some of them are really out there. We know that some of them are really just in here. Some people really just hear voices that aren't actually out there. So how do we tell the difference between an invisible God who is supernatural and outside of space-time and a non-existent God that we really can't determine?
Well, this is a very bad argument for you to make after what you said earlier, because what you said earlier was that all knowledge, including all scientific knowledge, is in here. You just said earlier that it's not a description of external reality, it is merely a description of the inward human process of apprehending that reality. Religious experience is exactly in the same category. Yes, it's in our head, but so is all other experience, so is all knowledge.
Finally, what would you say to the parents of a young child who dies due to starvation or leukemia or something like that? You surely wouldn't say this is a soul-building, character-building thing. God did this to make you a better person or something like that. What in the world would you say?
Well, let me first of all turn that question around by saying that if you're an atheist, the best you can say is, in a sense, things happen, right?
Yeah.
Tough luck. Too bad for you.
Well,
Glad it isn't me.
I wouldn't phrase it
my
quite like
genes are going to
that.
make it into the next generation. But if you're a religious person, you have something more to say than that. You say, listen, life is short, but we believe life is a pilgrimage. It's not the end of everything. In other words, there is another life. There is cosmic justice in the world. In other words, the justice we don't get in this life. We say what goes around comes around, but many times the bad guy ends up on top. The good guy comes to grief. And I see religion as a way of affirming the sense that in some ultimate sense, what goes around does come around.
Sort of reminds me of people ask me of my position on the afterlife, and I say, I'm for it. But the fact that I would like it to be true doesn't make it true, and I guess that's my concern about those kinds of arguments.
Okay, we're done with Dr. Shermer's cross-examination. Go ahead, please.